Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Full Time Devils. My name is Stephen Howson. Tonight I am joined by our kid, John Shin, over in the States to talk about, bro, how have we just seen Manchester United completely capitulate to Derby? Now, it's a Derby team that's doing well in the Championship. It's a Derby team that's got a talented group of players, but come on, man. This is not acceptable. It was a very strong Manchester United side, and it was a very strong Manchester United side that was outthought, outthunk, and outplayed, and thunk is a word, look it up, at home in the Cup. This is where I start to question why Jose Mourinho doesn't play some of them youngsters and go and get your opportunity. Tony Marshall was given possibly the one player on the pitch tonight that should have been, go get this opportunity, be undeniable. Didn't happen. Thought Lukaku might have started so he can get some confidence, so he can be a player where everyone goes, Joe, what? Big Rom's back, man. John, it didn't happen, did it?
No, it was absolutely, it was poor on all accounts. I mean, we looked lethargic from the get-go. So many players misplacing passes, the ball's constantly behind the runner. It was just lack of focus, lack of determination, lack of everything. And it was just an all-around disaster class for Manchester United today. I felt no intensity going forward. I think the first goal should have been the stepping stone for us to really kick it into the next gear. But rather than kicking it to next gear, I think Manchester United not even felt back complacency. I think this isn't even about a question of complacency. I think we need to start questioning the actual quality of some of these players. And, you know, time and time again, we sit here and constantly question Jose Mourinho's tactics and Jose Mourinho's this, Jose Mourinho that. But some of those players on that pitch do not deserve to be on that pitch or a combination thereof, because it was just an absolute poor performance today. And you have to give credit to Derby. They capitalized on this poor performance and they got the result that they wanted. Derby
are no mugs. They played some good football. They came to attack. We knew they'd come to attack. That's what they like to do. They're here to fight. They've got someone in Mason Mount who's a cracking player, and I wonder if he's just jumped onto some people's radars after a performance like that, strutting around Old Trafford like the best midfielder on the pitch. I want to ask you about Diogo Dalot, because there's been a lot of hype surrounding him. A fantastic performance against Young Boys in the Champions League. Anonymous tonight. Lacklustre defensively, allowing the cross in for the final goal. I thought Fellaini was a little bit at fault for that as it came across him as well, ball watching. Matic comes across, gets a little bit of a block on it as well for their second goal. But Fellaini in no man's land and Diogo Dalot just in no man's land as well. I mean, let's talk about Dalot. What did you think of Dalot tonight?
I mean, you know what? We can't, as much as we want to sort of judge every player sort of on an equal based merit. I mean, you can't really just constantly, you can't put
the volume up just a touch, please. So, carry on, John.
Yeah, sorry. No, I was just going to basically say you can't really destroy Dalot in that respect. This is his second game. He's still obviously very young. He's a 19-year-old. I mean, credit's giving where his credit's due. He had a great performance, like you said, against Young Boys. But today, while it was poor, I think we need to look at the bigger picture. For instance, normally at times you need to have a balance in the squad. Although this is a match against Derby County in the League Cup, you still need to have a decent balance of experience and youth in the squad. Normally, back in the days under Sir Alex Ferguson, he'd always mix and match his defenders, whether or not be with a defensive balance that's going to have a experienced fullback with a young center back, or an experienced center back with a young fullback. There has to be a balance. But our back line has Ashley Young on the left-hand side, who personally for me is past it in many respects. Phil Jones, obviously you know my feelings about Phil Jones. I just feel like Phil Jones should not be here, period. Eric Bailly, yes, I think he had a maybe decent performance at times, but they are not the leaders that we need for a 19-year-old aspiring, growing person like Dalot. And yes, it was his fault that, led into the cross, but nonetheless, we have to look at the bigger picture here. And I personally feel content with Dalot, but nonetheless, it was a poor performance from every aspect of the game.
Yeah, I absolutely think so. Lads, you need to turn me up another couple of notches on there, I think. Keep going again. Bit more. How's that? I think that's about right. Sorry about the volume, lads. We're trying something new with having us two on screen here, and my volume is a lot higher than John's, but it looks like we're leveling it off at the moment. So hopefully that's sorted it. Now, I'm not here to crucify the guy, and I want him to take it on, and I want him to be the guy that we hope he can be, but you have to analyse what's happened on the pitch there tonight. This was an opportunity for him to really stake a claim at becoming United's full-time right-back because of the performance that Antonio Valencia stuck in at the weekend. It looked lethargic. If I can for a second try and say something positive, the goal that we scored was Absolutely phenomenal in the 3rd minute. Phenomenal bit of football. Comes right across from left to right. Forward players having one touch on it, and it was great to see. And that is the sort of football I love to watch at United, at Old Trafford. And then from that moment, I don't know if we mentally decided, we've done enough. I couldn't tell you, I couldn't tell you. But that was tonight. Call it the EFL Cup all you want, right? Yeah, it was the EFL Cup. It just wasn't acceptable. It's just not acceptable from the calibre of player that we're putting out there. If we'd have stuck out a team full of under-23s, you could excuse it. You might be able to say, do you know what? Yeah, all right, they had a championship level side that went for it. That was the exact same team that they played at the weekend in the championship. Same 11. So we can't complain about this player was tired and that player was tired. They've got the same amount of tiredness as us, if not more. It just wasn't acceptable. Too many sloppy performances. Too many players trying to perhaps go for the glory themselves instead of going for the team. We got dominated in midfield. They created better chances than us. And they're deservedly in the hat for the next round. I'm going to come to the comments in a second. But John, just what do you want to even say about that? Is there anything particular stood out, good or bad for you? Probably bad, I'm thinking.
Well, I mean, just to kind of quickly sum up, Martial's performance was bright. I thought Mata was very effective because he was playing everything neat and simple. Try to keep the ball flowing, try to get the offensive transition flowing as quickly as possible. I enjoyed that aspect, but I was more so disturbed at the fact that we could not get the accuracy, the passing game down right. I thought in the middle of the park, we just could not either win the balls in a defensive aspect or even play the balls. And particularly speaking, I thought Matic had a really poor performance. I'm really interested to see what Statman David would have to say in terms of stats. But nonetheless, I thought Matic's performance was poor because not only was his body language looking a little bit laggedly, I thought he was constantly one step behind, one step too late. He looked a little tired at times, and I mentioned this in the beginning of the season when we were doing our preseason review. I said that we need to really be careful and be wary of Matic. He's obviously not a young player, and he's a seasoned veteran in all accounts, but we need to be very, very delicate in the way we treat his surgery that he had over the summer. And I think that's going to be a big factor this season for Matic, and we need to really be aware of how we're going to utilize him because he's going to be getting tired quicker. He's not going to have the same fresh legs as often as possible. And I thought today was the perfect example of Derby County really exposing Matic in that respect. I thought he got manned out too many times. His passing was awful. I don't know what his accuracy was, but that was one key factor that I just felt very disappointed about.
I'm going to see what you guys are saying in the comments. MUFC Tom says no one was good, no positive. Fooling yourself if you look for some. Mourinho out. Do you think there's going to be more calls for Jose to be sacked following tonight's exit in the Cup?
You know what? Jose Mourinho, I mentioned this time and time and again, he is the victim of his own, I don't know, demise. I don't know, whatever you want to call it. He's constantly been victimized because of the fact that he's very loud and because of the fact that he's not shy to say what he wants and he's just out there. And these are the times when you need allies. When things aren't going well, normally coaches need people to back you up. But if we're going to constantly hear the same thing again from the same people, it's just going to be muted. I mean, if Juan Mata's going to come out in a blog and say on Monday that, we need to pick things up, we got to go back and start again. If Ander Herrera comes out and tweets and says Jose Mourinho's this, Jose Mourinho's that, if Rashford does this, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, the results aren't coming, and Jose Mourinho is obviously the head, the leading man in this charge. And if things don't go well, we're going to have to really look into the situation carefully.
Do you think the board will act, or do you think they'll stick by him until end of the season?
That's a very good question, because normally we'd sit here and based on reports of whatever we might hear from the board, we might understand their sort of motive behind their decisions. But we hear things like the board is fully behind Jose Mourinho, they're not going to sack him. But at the same time, we also hear things like Jose Mourinho wasn't fully backed because they weren't sure of his money or of his financial decisions. There's just so many left-rights here that us fans are so puzzled. And we're not only are we puzzled on the pitch, we're puzzled off the pitch. And I feel like this big picture problem is just everything is just hitting the shit is hitting the fan, excuse my language, but it's just all just kind of coming at us full face, and it's very disappointing.
There was something that you just said there a second ago, and I'm trying to listen to what you said, remember what I want to say back, and then read some of the comments that's coming out as well. And it's completely slipped my mind what I was going to say. I do often wonder if they're waiting to sack him because there's no right or obvious candidate, or if they actually believe in the guy, they believe in the process. That was what I was going to say. You were talking about we're all over the place, off the pitch, we're all over the... I think tonight was just symptomatic of what Manchester United have been in a nutshell in one game. That we've had some excellent performances this season, and we've had some turgid performances this season, and we've had some inexplicable performances this season, and we saw all of that in tonight's game. It went from brilliant to boring to awful, back to boring, and almost back to brilliant a little bit again. This inconsistency is going to absolutely annihilate Manchester United, and I wonder if the talk of losing the dressing room, I don't believe it in some of the performances that I've seen. I don't believe it in the way that they tactically performed at Burnley and against Watford, and even in the first half against Tottenham. And I don't believe that the performance against Young Boys was a team that wasn't playing for the manager. But you can make an argument that the Brighton game was, and you can make an argument that tonight's game was. And I just don't know what is going on with the club at the moment. We lurch from bad decision from the board to bad decision, and the players lurch from good performance to bad performance. This club needs leadership and management from the top down, not just from Jose Mourinho down. It comes from higher than him. This club lacks leadership and vision from top to bottom, and that is where we need to fix what's going on. And if we don't fix what's going on, I don't even know how you begin to unravel it. This season is probably going to be a write-off, because you're competing with Chelsea, Liverpool and Manchester City, who are three extremely capable sides that I think could easily win the title this season. And I don't put us in that race with them. I put us below that in the race for top four alongside Tottenham. Probably just Tottenham really in the race for top four. And I'm not certain we're going to win that race. Madness. Can we beat West Ham on Saturday? Because Chelsea just struggled there big time. Will Johnson, we need a director of football. Lampard in, says unemployed grad. Losing to Fat Frank. Ouch. No Keane, no Vidic, no Bruce. Not even a Gary Neville. United have been in the title. Have United haven't been in? Well, we kind of. We was in a title one, yes, last year, up until Christmas. Lukaku threw one-on-one. Oh, God, there was times, Lukaku just didn't perform in the slightest tonight, I think. The tactics were poor. Derby looked good because we were bad. The club are in crisis and the media love it. I've always backed Jose, but it's time that he goes, said Uzi. They must be on steroid. Not really, mate. I mean, if you watch the Championship is that sort of high-octane league all the time. What was your thoughts on Martial tonight, John?
I thought he was bright. He was very direct, and I tweeted out that Martial was having a beautiful performance because he was having a really good balance of directness and purpose. Lots of players time and time again, fans time and time again just come on Twitter and say things like, oh, this player was taking players on all day. That's not what we want. We want players to take players on with purpose. He needs to beat somebody on the first touch, second touch, so that he can play a cross in. He can, play somebody in. There needs to have purpose, and Martial did that to the T today. I thought he had an excellent performance, and it's such a damn shame that we had to wrap up such a beautiful sort of ascension from Martial. Had we won this game, there would have been talks all over the place about, could Alexis Sanchez be dethroned by Martial? Would he lose his starting place? And that would have been a healthy conversation to have, as opposed to this kind of conversation that we're having now. But nonetheless, we needed the direction from our front line, and Lukaku wasn't showing it. And Mata obviously isn't the kind of player to show that level of lethality and clinical sort of approach. And Martial was the one doing that, and it's a shame that we had to take a loss this game. And it's also a damn shame that Lukaku wasn't there firing, and Lukaku wasn't there, and he had a poor performance as well.
I'm agreeing with you. I thought that the start of the performance, I was expecting United to go on and rack up 3, 4, 5 goals, and I was like, sweet, there's going to be competition for places, which is always good. There's going to be goals, and I was very confident after going up so early that we'd be able to put them away easily, and I wonder if that sort of complacency slipped in with the players. SJ89 says Zizou will be in at the end of the season. I'm more sure now than ever. Here's the thing, man. As much as I can get excited about a manager coming in, and you can see with how Chelsea dropped off towards the end of last season or towards last season, but Chelsea do this frequently, which makes me think it's less about the managers themselves and more about the players. They dropped off under Conte after winning the league under Conte, which they've done rinse and repeat through Mourinho and Ancelotti. And how many managers have Chelsea done this under? And Sarri's coming in, he's picked them up and he's given them an identity and he's pushed them forward. But this exact same cycle happened when Conte came in. And I think United are performing under that kind of level where we're not winning a title and then underperforming straight after it. But we're coming in, we're seeing a bit of a new identity from Moyes with Van Gaal. We're seeing a bit of a new identity and a little bit of an evolution with Jose Mourinho from what we saw on Louis Van Gaal. But look at what the playing staff still is. Zidane came in and lifted a Real Madrid team that didn't like, and arguably rightly so, Rafa Benitez. Wasn't performing for Rafa Benitez. He still finished arguably the same amount that United finished away from Manchester City last season with that Real Madrid team that won 3 back-to-back Champions Leagues. With a dream defence, from Marcelo Carvajal and Ramos and Varane. With a midfield that you couldn't pick a better one from. Literally, if I give you a midfield to go and select, you wouldn't really pick a better midfield than that. And an attack with Cristiano Ronaldo scoring you a goal a game. Now, he might be mint. But he's not a magician. He's not going to come in and be like, cool, Bill Jones, Smalling, Ashley Young, check this out. I'm going to turn you into Marcelo and you into Sergio Ramos. He's not going to do that. And he's not going to make that midfield suddenly dominate and have 300 passes between just that midfield in a game. He's not going to do that. I don't know where we go from here. Because I think that we're getting to the point where we're going to have to act. Because inconsistency is going to absolutely kill us this season. What was you going to say, mate?
Yeah, so basically, just to sort of play devil's advocate here, if you look at sort of other coaches and other clubs and other leagues and whatnot, there's many players that are sort of inflated in terms of their qualities as a player. A very sort of blunt an example that we can look at is you look at Sir Alex Ferguson's qualities, and I'm not comparing Sir Alex Ferguson to any other schlup out there, but Sir Alex Ferguson was the greatest coach of all time, one of the greatest ever, and the way he handled his team was that he made average players look decent. He made players like Tom Cleverley look like a master in the middle of the park. He destroyed an Arsenal team with a midfield of Fabio, Raphael, Park Ji-sung, and Darren Fletcher. I mean, that speaks in volumes, and I think that also in turn has to reflect on your manager. If Jose Mourinho is not going to be able to get the best out of players that can be beaters on their day, then there's obviously a problem there. And of course, it's not just Jose Mourinho. It's as I mentioned time and time and again, it's a collective approach. But nonetheless, Jose Mourinho has his part, and he needs to step up in that respect. I feel like tactics, of course, is down to Jose Mourinho, but man management is also down to Jose Mourinho as well. And if he's not going to be able to get his players, it's not about playing his way. It's about playing a way that's going to suit his team. It's not the 90s. It ain't the 80s. It certainly ain't the 70s no more. And he cannot handle the squad the same way he might have handled the squad 10 years ago, 5 years ago. It's a different team, different players, different era. And he's going to need to wake up and he's going to need to restructure something if this is going to happen.
You're right, mate. You are right. There's someone mentioned this to us a week, maybe a week and a half or so ago, maybe a little bit longer ago. That is. It's not 100% Jose, but it's not 0% Jose neither. It's not 100% the players, and it's not 0% the players. And it's not 100% Mr. Woodward, and it's not 0% Mr. Woodward. But there is a percentage of blame to attach to every single level inside this club. And until we get some leadership and vision, we are destined to turn into the Scousers, talking about history and winning fuck all on the pitch. Getting excited about winning fucking goal of the season when it wasn't even goal of the month. Right, I think we'll call it a day there. Thank you guys for joining us. Go and give John a subscribe and make him the biggest John Shin on YouTube. Subscribe to Full Time Devils. Get your comments in. I'll see you in the next one. Laters.